Okay, let's call the city council meeting to order tonight on 2/22/22. How do you imagine that? All twos, we won't see that again. So I'll call that. Pam, would you take a roll call, please?
Baraboo,
Present.
Friedlieb,
Present.
Paulson,
Present.
Yondich,
Present.
Johnson,
Here.
Aaronzelli. Cuffey is absent.
And our mayor is out of town doing some business tonight, so I'm taking over as vice mayor, I guess. So now we'll have the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States, republic for which it stands. Okay, let's move on to item number 4, the public forum. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak tonight in that section? We have no one listed. If not, let's move on then to item number 5, the consent agenda. Note there will be a motion will be to approve the consent agenda as listed unless there's a request from a council or a citizen of Virginia to an item that's on the consent agenda. Item 5.1 is approve the correction of the minutes of the regular meeting held on February 8th, 2022. 5.2, adoption of finance resolution number 22004, schedule of bills. 5.3, approve the travel request for Nicholas Grivna, police officer, to attend the Canine Narcotic Seminar on April 2nd to the 3rd, 2022 in Brainerd, Minnesota at a cost of $149. Item 5.3B, to attend the Crisis Intervention Team Training May 16th to the 19th, 2022 in Duluth at a cost of $450. Looking for a motion or removal if there is one.
I'll move the consent agenda.
Councilor Johnson moves. Is there support? Okay, support by Councilor Baranzelli. Any discussion on any of those? Hearing none, all those in favor as an aggregate of all 3 items?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, aye. The motion carries for the consent agenda. Now we have item number 6, appearances, which are limited 10 minutes, but we do have some leeway sometimes on those. Mr. Don Eder to discuss snow dumping at Bailey's Lake. Mr. Eder, thank you.
Thank you as well, councilors. Nothing's changed since the last time I was here. Not a thing, except there's more snow. In fact, a week ago, yesterday, they cleared the parking lot of all vehicles and piled all of that snow back up there. And this morning, they cleared all of their access aisles, and they're actually encroaching on the alley now. The walk path has been blocked quite since before, but now they've got the snow clear out into the alley.
So Don, they're on the public right-of-way then of the city-owned property then?
Yes, all the snow is on city property.
Did we, Brett, notify through Public Works on this, or do we have to send a fine, Brian?
I apologize. There's previously been a letter prepared and sent to the apartment building, and then I'm looking also for information about the contractor who's responsible for moving it, to send a letter directly to the contractor as well.
Okay,
We have, our Public Works Director has
That-
spoken, our Public Works Director has spoken to the contractor, and they did ask us, where can we bring it to the snow dump, which is the appropriate location for it to be hauled to. We assumed at that time, since the contractor reached out and asked where to bring it, that things were going to be okay, and apparently not. So I don't know if it's a different contractor. I don't know if something got lost in translation.
The shovel is placed as far as I could dig across the alley. I couldn't get to the edge of it, So excuse me, so that shovel is stuck in the right-of-way.
Okay, so this now is dumping on the lakeside, correct?
Yes,
Okay, that's our property, because we own all that property, including the alley that
yes.
goes through there. How can we institute some type of a fine policy on this? Because they're not supposed to dump it. We must have that in ordinance, don't we, without permission from the
Well,
city?
My question is, have they been notified?
Yeah, they've been
How
notified.
do we know they were notified? Did they receive the letter?
I didn't get a return receipt.
Well, then she can say she didn't receive it, right? Then we're back to square one. How can we send them a fine if we didn't notify them that we were going to fine them?
We don't have to notify them, essentially. The city ordinance specifically states it's not allowed to put snow on right-of-way. You don't
Excuse me.
have to notify them that.
Good, okay.
Okay, we'll see that someone from the city contacts the building manager, and then we'll follow up with the contractor. Counselor Johnson.
I would also, if appropriate, I think we should remove the snow and bill them accordingly. I noticed it last week from across the lake, it looked like it was bigger. And I'm guessing that under that pile of snow somewhere is was a brand new fence. That's that area in there. So I think I would, I'll move, and then there'll be more discussion, but I'll move that we direct city staff to send the appropriate fine and direct city staff to remove the snow at their expense, and do it as able pending the current situation.
Okay, is there a support to that motion?
I'll support for discussion.
Okay, Counselor Paulson's discussion.
Thank you. So it was my recollection last time Mr. Etter was here, and thank you for coming again. I'm sorry it's under these circumstances. But that I had moved to cease and desist. And that was the formal action that was taken, and that cease and desist was sent to the apartment manager, and then it's their responsibility to communicate with their contractor. Is that correct? Okay. And what was the other thing that we had stated in that? Can you
And
and remove it, and so that was never done.
And they had called afterwards, like I mentioned, they called after they got the letter, apparently, I'm assuming, because we got a call from a contractor saying, where can I bring it? And our public works director explained, you can bring it to these snow dumps, this is where you allow people to dump. Feel free, just let us know when you're going.
So, Mr. Etter, to your knowledge, was that snow ever removed at any point in time?
No.
Not ever?
No, it's been steadily placed in there. What they do is they'll plow the access aisles and push that in there.
push it up.
And then, I don't know if I mentioned it yet or not, but a week ago today, they cleared the parking lot and then completely cleared it and pushed that up. And so that covered the path completely then. And then this morning, they encroached the alley itself by clearing their access aisles.
And I don't know if there's another type of anything violation ordinance encroaching upon an alleyway, but if that needs to be added on to your motion, Counselor Johnson. And then from your pictures, it looks like now that it's right over the fence, where I think before, maybe it was right up to the fence.
Previously, when I came here, which really got my attention, is they had actually dumped over the new wooden railed fence into the lake. And then since then, excuse me, they haven't piled it in front of the fence, but they've gone down to the vacant part of the easement there, the city property, and been packing it into there. And they're actually a half of a block to the south where they've,
With how they're moving.
yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And, okay, so thank you for that, and I would support, I don't know if there's anything more that we can do with any additional teeth, but would that be our city crew, city workers would remove that and then pay to have union wages sent to the contractor? Is that how that works?
We have an hourly fee scale that we have for insurance purposes and such that we would use for these kind of things. There are that rare occasion where people do a contract with us that they just simply can't because of these high snowbanks, that if we have time allows, that we do a minimum 2-hour fee for this loader is this much, and then the operator is this much, and then
Okay.
this much.
And so is there Brian Lindsay, is there a contractor's lien that can be applied, or would that not be able to be applied until if they didn't pay for the bill that the city would submit to them? Is there any way you can do a contractor lien?
This type of an expense probably wouldn't lend itself very appropriately to what we could commonly think of as a mechanic's lien.
Right.
Because mechanics liens traditionally are for those that request materials or labor for the improvement of their property. In this, they're not requesting it. So this is one of those things where we would probably bill them, and if they don't pay the bills, we would try to take some action to have it added to their tax rolls.
Okay, thank you very much.
May I ask a question? Is it the contractor or the Atlas Metals that will be built?
Ultimately, the property owner is responsible.
Okay, anything else from anyone else on the council? If not, we'll take care of it administratively like we started to. Councilor Johnson.
Can we put a quick timeline on that? I don't want to see snow happening again next week, and now it's a bigger problem.
Can't guarantee that. Our staff is already working overtime this whole week to start clearing our own snow out of our
Right,
parking
right.
lots and such. So I can't guarantee when we're going to get that out. However, we will get the confirmation to them, that the communication to them. I just don't know when we're going to get it out of
Okay,
there.
and I guess I was thinking that if they don't want to have it billed out, they need to get their contractor there tomorrow and start
Yes.
fixing it.
Oh, yes. Yes.
So, and can we make sure we send this bill certified? I mean, just to make sure that you got the phone call, but again, I'm with Mr. Etter, they could deny, well, we were just wondering, we didn't get a letter. I can see that happening, so if we can just make sure they receive it.
I could either send it certified, or I could have it personally served on the manager, or both.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay, any other discussion on this issue right now? If not, we'll let staff and the attorney handle this, and as quickly as they possibly can handle this. Okay? Oh, okay. Is there no further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, motion carries, 6-0.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks, Don, for coming up. Appreciate your good look at stuff as a patron of Virginia, so thank you. Okay, we'll move on to item number 7. Property at 410 Fifth Street South. Anything more on that, Brian?
Thank you. I have not had contact directly with the property owner, but I will. I haven't followed up in a couple of days since late last week. So I will follow up, and I will have an update by the committee of the whole meeting this coming Tuesday.
Okay. Did you folks have any more to talk about on that property? It's next door to yours at this point? Okay, we'll make sure, Brian, you make sure you'll get working on this by next week, Tuesday. Okay, Maya,
Thank you.
I should say Counselor Beyondich, I should
It's
use the
okay.
proper terminology.
It's okay. So was a letter sent to them? Did they receive it? Was it a certified letter? Do we know that they received it, that the property owner has that letter?
I had received, at some point, I did receive a telephone message related to that property, but I haven't had direct contact with the owner.
So do we have, I mean, we keep pushing this off week by week. Can we nail down a time frame when these things can happen? So we're not dealing with it at the next meeting all the time?
The stage that we're at now, what we're trying to do is get a consent to go into the property. And what we could do is we could give notice that if the consent's not received by a certain date, we'll start the administrative warrant process. Because that's the alternative ability to get in to do the inspection on the interior is either by consent or by an administrative warrant.
I would suggest that we do that because each week we come back, it's always another week. So do I need to make a motion to do that?
Brian, would you
Or
prefer
just
to have
direct
one?
staff?
At this point, I think we could just be directed. I don't think we need a formal motion. We'll just consider it to be a directive.
Okay, then I would direct city staff to take the appropriate actions to keep this moving along. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor Beyondich. Counselor Paulson?
Thank you, Vice Mayor. So when we sent that letter, Brian, did the council receive a copy of that letter? I don't think I remember receiving a copy.
I don't know that I sent the final copy. I believe that Britt reviewed a draft of the letter before it went out.
Okay, I would like to see a copy of that letter, and then it was, I guess I'd have to ask Pam to go back and look in the minutes, but I thought that we were giving them a specified time frame within that letter, and then automatically it stated that we would do the administrative warrant. And Brian, maybe you weren't here, maybe it was Colleen when we had that discussion, I can't remember, but Colleen was here with one of those discussions. But I wanted it clear that that's what we wanted done, and that we had asked for it would be Bill Cole, then we wanted the health department, we wanted the inspection coordinated, and possibly like someone from our fire marshals, fire department, fire marshal, and anyone else. Can you remember anyone else that we had talked about? We wanted to actually have a date set, and I'm not happy that I don't have a date in front of me.
And in regards to that, I specifically requested that Bill Cole not be the engineer who goes out and does that, because he has a relationship with Todd Toman, and I personally think he's part of the problem here. So I had talked to a few others, and they said that they would maybe hire an independent source for that, somebody who's not directly related to or involved in a relationship with the
Okay, and
property owner.
Thank you for that, Bruce, I appreciate that. I think I want to go back, and I understand what you're getting at, but I want to go back to when we had talked about this originally, we were going to set a date. There was a letter to be sent out, and if they didn't communicate back to us, then I thought, going to go through the administrative warrant process where that we would be able to access that at the city's behest and go ahead and bring the officials in that need to be brought in to do this inspection. And I can't remember when the last time, it's got to be at least a month ago that we've been going through this, and now here we are 4 weeks later. So I understand that while just a directive to staff is maybe what's recommended, I want to see a motion to actually submit or do a administrative warrant. And I don't know, Brian, if you can do that on top of the letter that's already been written, but we need some satisfaction here, and we need to get in and inspect that property.
This is the third council meeting that I've been to, so we're talking a month and a half plus one committee of a whole meeting. So we're a month and a half out now, and then you're still talking about this much time for this much time, and we're just getting bumped every 2 weeks here, and that's not acceptable. That's what I've been putting up with for 14 years here.
So I will move to direct our city attorney to, develop and craft the administrative warrant. And I would like to be CC'd on that, Brian, and maybe the rest of the council can be CC'd on the rest of the correspondence that you've had with the property owner. But it would be my motion that we execute an administrative warrant to approach the property with the inspection officials as requested.
Support.
Okay, I was just going back and looking at the minutes from the last council meeting. We did not have a formal resolution or a formal motion on that. So is there further discussion? Counselor Johnson?
Is the sidewalk being cleaned in front of that property?
They just cleaned the sidewalk for the first time this year on February 13th. One and only time it's been done, hasn't been done before since then.
And that's just because snow, it's supposed to be done within 24 hours of or whatever our ordinance says, so maybe there's some other routes we can be doing too to let him know we're serious.
Okay. Any further discussion by anyone? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, now we have it officially on the record with a motion. So, okay, thank you very much. And we'll have our attorney work on this. Okay, the next item is item 7.2, clinic lease. I don't think anything's been accomplished yet on that, correct, Brett? Okay, so we'll just leave that on the agenda. The 7.3 rental code ordinance. Anything transpired on that, Brett? It's in our packet. Oh, here it is. Rental ordinance discussion. Okay. We have a list of what they need to do in your packet. If you see it there, it's item 7.3. Timeline process they have what they need to do. They have public comments in the following areas. You can see that. Local realtors, local landlords, local tenants, AEOA, Habitat for Humanity, Planning Commission, City Council, City Staff, City Police, City Fire, local news outlets, and others. So they'll have to have, I'm guessing, a bunch of public hearings, correct, Brett?
Planning and Zoning Commission's been reviewing the rental court ordinance quite heavily, so their suggestion is what's listed in here for a timeline. They have done step one, which is the Planning Commission's considering the draft rental ordinance and making needed edits and revisions. They want to bring forth a communications plan where they have the draft ordinance or a link to it published on the city website and for review and comment. The draft ordinance and link would also be published in the local newspaper asking for feedback, comments, and suggestions from the public. The commission would actually do selected direct input and public comments from the following: the local realtors, landlords, tenants, AEOA, Habitat for Humanity, the Planning Commission, City Council, City Staff, City Police, City Fire, local news outlets, and others. And their timeline is they want to start doing this in April, taking the testimony, written and oral for the draft ordinance, take any input that they received and amend the ordinance from the public input in May and June, publish the draft ordinance again in local newspaper and city website on July 22nd. Then they want to talk about the city staffing proposal to be completed by October 2022, the city staffing plan determined by November 2022, and present the final copy of the draft rental ordinance for the Planning Commission, a rejection on December 2022 with a goal to have it adopted or terminated by January 1st, 2023.
Okay, any questions on that timeline that they put together? Councilor Frieda.
Just real quick, we did receive information today from Pam that's by way of the Coalition for Greater Minnesota Cities, and just to alert you of House Finance Bill 3256, which is authored by Representative Steve Elkins of Bloomington. It's a act called the Legalized Affordable Housing Act, which is attempting, I'm reading from the email that was sent, address the desperate needs for more housing elsewhere in the state by slapping handcuffs on local governments rather than focusing on real solutions to the housing crisis. And this Legalized Affordable Housing Act, according to the Coalition for Greater Minnesota Cities, claims that this does nothing to address the crisis in Greater Minnesota. Rather, it would potentially strip away zoning and land use authority that are essential tools for local governments to benefit our communities economically and socially while helping to protect the environment. And so I think our city needs to be alert to that and to have conversations with regard to that, how it may impact our city. With regard to one of the concerns that I've heard from constituents in the city is, for lack of a better term, it's rental creep, so to speak, that there's rental units that pop up throughout town, further moving west into town, which have been traditionally residential, single-family neighborhoods. And there are concerns as to, is there a possibility for a city, for example, to cap the amount of rental units that could be afforded to people in a residential area per se, if that would be, I know that sounds potentially discriminatory in a sense, but I think it's something that needs to be considered in every city as to whether or not a rental unit is appropriate for that particular residential area that's in place and has been for up to a century. So I think this particular finance bill is potentially, like it says, going to handcuff local jurisdiction in terms of determining zoning for appropriate use of properties for rentals throughout a city. So just something to be aware of that the city might want to look into in the event that we were looking at something in our rental ordinance that's going to protect residential areas from an abundance of rental.
And zoning is one way that they've done this in other cities, so you can't have this creeping going all over a city. But I also have a question that we need to research. Brian, we're a charter city, not a statutory city. How does that fit in with what we can do and what the state can mandate us to do? That's a question I have, because there's certain things that they can't stick their fingers in a charter city. So can you kind of look at that and see?
I will take a look at that question.
In any event, so since we're in the midst of developing our ordinance, it would be timely for us to look into whether or not this would impact our ordinance in a way that would be potentially negative to our city.
Thank you, Gary, for your, Councilor Friedland, for your input. Anybody else have any input at this point with the timeline? This is not a fast process. It takes a lot of time because you got to have all these hearings and talk to all these people when you're doing this, so it takes a lot of time. Okay, let's move on to, are we going to do any action tonight? I don't think we need to on the restaurant lease, Britt, do we? Or Councilor Paulson?
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I would move to not renew the lease on the golf course.
Support?
Okay, so move to support it not to renew the current lease on the golf course. Any further discussion on this? Councilor Freeland?
I guess I'm not saying that I disagree with that necessarily as much as I don't know that I have full information for me to vote yea or nay with regard to that, or certainly yea. So at this point in time, given the information that I've been provided, I don't know that I'm at the point of agreeing to eliminate that, given like they're going to be making payments and there's other conversations yet to be had. So I don't know that I'm at that point yet. By voting no, that doesn't necessarily mean that I'm not in agreement that at some point in time this may be imminent.
Okay, I have a comment. Councilor Johnson first. Do you have a comment? No. I have a comment on this. We've already put in motion that they have to have their arrears and their dollars paid up by, it's the 4th of March, correct, Pam? I believe it's the 4th of March. At that time, if they don't, we go into an automatic 14-day where the city can just take it over and not do anything. That's the same time we're going to have another before we're going to have another council meeting. So I'm not going to support this at this point because it's going to automatically happen in less than 2 weeks here anyway. So if they don't.
Can I clarify? Can I clarify the motion? This motion, that their payment, bringing their payment up to speed is one thing. This is about the lease termination on May 30th. So, April 30th. So my motion is not to renew the lease.
On April 30th. Okay, all right. Councilor Johnson. Pam?
And that's, I'm in agreement with not renewing the current lease, and we would not do that because we need to look at a different lease. During the working session, that was kind of the discussion that whatever it is, the current lease isn't necessarily meeting the city's needs to protect against the concerns we have over late payments and the outstanding. So I'll be supporting not renewing this lease because then my next motion would be to, I'll do that, but I think we need to make sure everybody knows we're not renewing this lease because there needs to be a different lease who that is with is not being decided here tonight.
And if you need me to amend my motion, I would amend that. If you want to include that, I'd be happy to.
I think not renewing the lease is sufficient.
Okay, thank you.
Counselor Friedland.
And so what we're saying is, and we talked about this before, that the lease is just not appropriate for what we're trying to have accomplished, right? And
That's
so we're
correct.
looking at not renewing the lease, but that doesn't necessarily mean the leasee.
That's correct, they can reapply.
They'd have the opportunity to
Reapply.
resubmit. So I think we're at this point where, yeah, I'm agreeable to that. Thank you for that clarification.
Okay, and I'm agreeable now too with that clarification. Pam, did you have something you wanted to add?
Had a question for the attorney. Do we need to have that date of April 30th in here or not? That is the lease that is expiring.
I think we should include the date to make sure that we're specific about which lease is non-renewing.
Is that okay with you, Counselor Paulson, to add
Yes,
that date in there? And-
Yes.
Okay. Any further discussion on this? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, that takes care of items 7.
Yeah.
Counselor Johnson.
I would like to make a motion that we advertise for lease partners as renegotiating the lease would need to be done independently. So we advertise that we have a lease available beginning potentially May 1st, but possibly earlier, and allow everybody who would like to have a lease submit for possible negotiation.
Okay, any support to that motion?
I'll support.
Okay, support by Counselor Paulson. Counselor Johnson.
Thank you. And so this would allow for the current leasee as well as potential other leasees to say, this is what we would need to do to be able to make our business work in this space. So that we are making sure that we're not obligating the citizens to back rent or back lease, and that the contract can be written in such a way that moving forward, we're able to have a better partnership, and there is less misunderstanding, and there's better defined communication routes for both entities moving forward. And I guess I would ask that we put a date. My date was March 15th, because that allows for some time to see what happens with the current leasee, but it also allows people a good couple weeks to be able to submit with the advertisement. But I don't know if that's enough time, Britt, to get it out, if you'd like, is March 15th? So I would like to have the deadline for getting those submissions of March 15th.
Okay, then I have a question. Mr. Lindsay, we started the 14-day process already. If they come in with full payment of what they owe, they get an extension of 14 days, correct?
The 14-day default notice has been served. It was served as of, I hand-delivered it to them last Friday. If they pay what's outstanding, then the lease is considered redeemed and it would go to the expiration. If they don't pay what's outstanding within 14 days, then their lease is terminated and they have 14 days to vacate.
Okay. So either way, Brian, you have a problem if we don't unload that lease before April 30th, because we'll never get anybody in there before golf season, correct?
Yeah, if we are going to have the possibility of changing leasees or leaseors in the golf course for the restaurant, this is the appropriate time for us to be starting this process so that we can determine who is interested and negotiate those terms of the lease moving forward.
And it's legal for us to go out and look for possible entities? Okay, then I'm satisfied. Any further discussion on this? We need a, Yeah, can you repeat your motion, Mr. Counselor Johnson?
To advertise for potential partners as for the lease of the golf course building to be submitted by March 15th.
As a restaurant, correct?
Yes.
Okay, who supported that? You did, Counselor Paulson? Okay. Thank you. Okay, any further discussion? No. Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Okay, now we'll move on to item 8. Item 8.1, approve the awards dinner for the fire department at a cost of $30 per member for 41 members for a total cost of $1,230. Now, this, my understanding, it's only for the active employees. If they bring somebody else, they pay, correct? That's what's happened in the past. Okay. So I'm looking for a motion for that authorization. Counselor Johnson.
I'm trying to remember if we had this discussion last year about the appropriate use of public funding, and not to diminish that they don't deserve it, but I think I asked the question last year, do we do the same for the police department and the other city employees at $30 a piece? And we couldn't, if I remember, we can do this if we put it in the budget because it's in the budget. But did we put it in the budget for this year, or was it put in the fire, did the fire department add it into their budget?
I'd have, oops, Mayor.
Go ahead.
Mayor, Counselor Johnson, and councilors, I would have to go line by line, but I believe if they put it in the budget, it's in the budget.
Okay. Answers that question. Any further discussion on that issue? It's been, I think, moved and supported, correct? Counselor Paulson?
Thank you. Do we have a location of this?
I don't remember.
It's going to be at the Iron Trail Motors Event Center.
Thank you, sir. That's what I was looking for. I'll move to approve. I guess I'll move to approve.
There's support.
I'll support, or you support?
Counselor Friedlib, he supports. Any further discussion? Counselor Friedlib?
No, I was gonna, I mean, it's a budgeted item within the budget at the fire department, correct? Is this an annual event?
What's that?
Their annual employee recognition and their awards dinner where they give the awards for the life-saving awards and the meritorious awards.
And the chief has
such.
the autonomy to budget accordingly for such awards
Correct.
ceremony. Okay, thank you. I support.
Hang on, Brian's looking up one thing to make sure this is a legal expenditure that we can make, so. There's a second here. Any further discussion while we're waiting for Brian to see that? Counselor Johnson?
And this is weedy, but is the city renting, is the fire department renting the space? Is the city renting, is the union renting? It just seems kind of muddy, and I appreciate that Brian's looking that up because I guess, again, I want to go to fairness of if we're doing this, then I would ask that the other department heads look at how are they utilizing to recognize their employees as well. I know we do an annual mayor's brunch for just about everybody who wants to come. And again, I'm not against doing this. I just want to make sure we're doing it right.
Okay, we'll give Brian a minute or so do that because the next item is going to be Mr. Eilertson, so that's going to take a little bit of time here. So we'll hang on for a minute here until he can find that. We've been doing it, I know, for years all over the city for different events like this. I have a personal preference of why we should do this now. Those individuals within the fire department, police department, throughout those few years we've been dealing with COVID, they've gone above and beyond their duty to deal with patients that have COVID. and they've been exposing themselves to all kinds of stuff with COVID. We've been lucky that we haven't had a lot of individuals come down with COVID. And they've been delivering and taking serious patients to Duluth and non-serious patients to Virginia. So it's one of those things that I think they deserve recognition for the service they did during COVID. Councillor Paulson.
Thank you. And I can understand the conversation here, but I just want to also read, it's the firefighters, the Virginia firefighters at Local 390 are requesting $30 each, $1,230 for 41 employees to attend this year's award ceremony. So it's an actual award ceremony. It's not an employee appreciation. It's an actual award ceremony. And I would assume the police department has a similar award. Do they receive awards similar to the fire department? So I'm not sure, Brian, if that's splitting hairs, but it's an actual award ceremony and not just like a employee appreciation dinner.
And I've taken a look through here. I believe that this expenditure is appropriate and it is allowable because it's an established program and it's an award ceremony and it's budgeted. And the value of the budgeted amount is not excessive.
Okay, does that answer questions? Councillor Johnson? Okay. Anybody else have any questions on this? We have a motion on the floor, Pam? I can't remember. Short brain. Do we have a motion on the floor for this? We do? Okay. It's been moved and supported. Hearing no more discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay. All right. Now we'll move on to item 8.2, consider approval of the general obligation grant application note Series 2022A and adopt the resolution for the issuance, sale, and delivery of general obligation temporary grant anticipation note. Hey, Britt, do you want to give us some, or George? This is George's item, right?
All right. Britt, can you hear me fine?
Yes, we can.
Okay, good evening, Acting Mayor Baraboo and members of the council. Thank you for time on your agenda. So this item is, as noted by the title, this is the city had previously received $9.5 million for the public safety facility and from the state of Minnesota. So what this financing is, it's a grant anticipation note where you can issue debt ahead of receiving the grant for expenditures that you are realizing at this point. So when you're doing property acquisition, when you're doing demolitions that are coming up, etc., you don't have access to the state grant until the total financing package is available or committed rather. And it's our understanding from recent conversations with the state that that would be approximately July, August of this year. So this is really a short-term financing to cover some of these expenditures that you are realizing at this point. So at a special city council meeting on January 25th, you gave me direction to go out and solicit quotes for this financing. And so we sent the proposal out to the local banks as well as other lenders that have expressed interest in the past. And so we received 4 bids from community banks, community and larger banks. And in your packets is a financing summary. And on the last page, council, is a tabulation of bids. We received 4 bids on the financing with Park State Bank, formerly American State Bank, providing the low interest rate of 1.91%. And what's nice to see certainly is the second place bid was close behind at 1.95%. And So what you're doing with the resolution, when you consider acting upon that, is you're locking in the rates and the terms for this financing. It's important to note that this is a drawdown financing similar to like a construction loan, where you only pay interest on what you use. And so what's nice about that is that it's $9.5 million. You're not paying interest on $9.5 million at closing. You'll only pay interest on the portion of that you use. And Britt and I have certainly talked to the bank as well as to the state that when we're able to access, or when the city is able to access the state grant, we'll certainly be spending down on this note. So the hope here is to minimize the interest cost over time and then ultimately not be in this financing for more than a year. So the closing date on this financing is March 22nd. The resolution does authorize the rates and terms, like I said, and it locks in the rates contingent upon final bank approval. Park Bank has their board meeting for approval of loans on Thursday this week. And, you know, we certainly, Britt and I have had numerous conversations with them. We feel that will be approved this Thursday. There won't be the need for the city council to have additional action after Thursday. The resolution allows for the bank to approve that on Thursday. So, Mayor, members of the council, any questions on this financing?
I have one.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, George, this is Counselor Paulson.
Yes.
So on the date, the origination date is March 22nd, 22. Maturity date is March 1st, 2025. So we've got those basically 3 years to spend that money down. Is that correct?
Yes, good question. It's got a 3-year term. Certainly the anticipation is that you can pay this down at any point and pay it off early without any penalty. So even though it's got a 3-year term, that's kind of allowed for kind of the unknown scenario if there's materials shortages or what have you that would lead to a construction delay. We allowed for a longer term. The intention certainly is we'll get out of this financing as soon as you're at that point where the overall project cost has exceeded $9.5 million. This short-term note should be retired soon thereafter.
Okay, so the question that I had then is on the tabulation of bid sheet that I see, and Park State Bank was the lowest interest rate, but it says net interest cost, which is $533,765.42. Is that over the 3 years up until the maturity rate, that's what we would pay net interest?
That is a terrific observation, and actually that should not be a number that we should focus on. That would be a scenario where if you fully paid interest from day one through the end of 36 months, the end of 3 years, $9.5 million at 1.91%. That's how much interest costs that would be incurred. For full disclosure, we probably shouldn't have put net interest cost on that sheet for that reason. The expectation is that you'll spend significantly less than $100,000 on interest costs, because when you only pay interest on what you use, and then for that period of time, in addition to that, we'll be able to access the grant from the state to pay down on the $9.5 million, excuse me, likely beginning in the summer of 2022. So
So just
So
for
thank you for that question.
Yeah, and just for clarification then, so this is basically like a bridge or gap funding for the city to use until we receive the funds from the state, which is a grant in and of itself, correct?
That's correct, yes.
Okay, and then on the one, we will only be charged 1.91% interest on those funds that we expend from the $9.5 million. So that we're basically getting the 9.5 upfront. We will only be paying 1.91% interest on any expenditures. And what you're figuring is that the state money would come in quicker than the 36-month maturity date, which your estimation under $100,000 in net interest cost.
That is certainly my expectation, yes. And that the city certainly has expended out of your reserve funds, from talking with city staff, approximately $2 million to date. The city certainly has the opportunity at closing March 22nd to pay yourself back. And then if that were the case, then you'd pay interest on $2 million at 1.91%. So I'll review with city staff certainly how often we draw down on the $9.5 million. The expectation certainly is that we wouldn't do it weekly. We would likely do just at a minimum one draw a month from Park State Bank, and in order to try to minimize the interest cost.
Right, and I guess my thought process would be, and I appreciate you working with city staff, but my thought process was, the quicker we get the state grant funding in, the less, obviously interest that this is going to cost, which comes basically right off the bottom line of our public safety center. So just being mindful
Yes.
of that is very appreciated.
Yes, we're all on the same page. Thank you for that comment. And so certainly the quicker we can access, like you noted, the state grant, of course, that would mean the project is moving along in a good order, because you would be expending upwards of $9 million. At that point, we can access the full grant. But we are able to, it's my understanding, to incrementally draw it down. So that's the expectation. And again, trying to minimize interest costs there.
Thank you, George.
Okay, Councillor Johnson.
This is one of the states, I guess this is for you, Sherry. The state will only give us money after we spend it, correct?
Jump in, Sherry.
Please.
Yeah.
This is the interesting, our language we got from our $9.5 million we got from the state was for phase one for acquisition, demolition, and site prep. We cannot get the grant from the state until we own the property.
So when,
So I called the state and with George on the phone and said, so the very first word is acquisition. How can I acquire the property if I don't have the money? And so their suggestion was to do this short-term financing to pay ourselves back. They're hurrying with us just right along to get this grant application, but we have to own all the property before we can. So that's why that quick take resolution is very
yes.
important, because that will help speed this process. Once we have, we own all the property, then we can get the grant agreement in place, get at least the first drawdown from the state, and draw down from the state, not have to draw down from the loan.
perfect.
So we can,
I appreciate.
it's a cart and horse thing, and it's been a difficult discussion with the state. We've tried working with them. It's
And different departments have different requirements. Sometimes you have to spend everything, then they give it to you.
Yep.
And other departments will give it to you as you spend it. So
Yep.
I appreciate all the
This is
hard
going to be
work.
technically considered an end grant, but they're willing to, like they did at the Iron Trail Motors Event Center, is to give us payments and lump sums as we complete certain benchmarks.
Okay,
So there will be a point at the end where they'll probably be holding some until we get the certificate of occupancy, but we'll be working with them all along the way.
okay. Thank you for all your hard work, George, as well as the staff. Thank you for putting this together.
Brett, we've already gotten this grant, correct?
The legislatures, it doesn't come to us until after we acquire the property. We have to show that we physically own the
I
property.
understand, but it's been passed at the
Oh, yeah,
legislature.
yeah. Legislatively, it's there. Yep.
So we can't even draw if we own portions of that property, because we will own portions of that property.
We have to own the
So it
entire
is an
parcel.
end, so it is an end grant.
It is an end grant, essentially.
Okay, all right. Okay, anybody else? Councillor Frieda.
Yeah, just since I have such a layman's understanding of what we're doing and what we're in the midst of doing. So the 9.5 million, which George just told us how we're gonna be financing, is for the acquisition, demolition, and site preparation.
Correct.
So then all of that work being done to clear that for construction, then that has to be done prior to then the USDA loan being applied to us? Or what, I guess
That's
the
another
butterflies in
tandem.
my
Yep.
stomach
Yep.
are where are we gonna get the other 20 million to to
That's
complete
happening
the
in
project.
tandem. So the USDA's application, we've gone through the pre-application, we're working on the full application. So in tandem, we're working on that application with USDA. So it is a very real possibility that we may get the approval from the state, and the next day the USDA comes in and pays everybody off, because the USDA wants to be the only one with a lien on this property and nobody else.
And will they have a favorable percentage rate?
We are hoping to. That's why we're really hurrying up on that one too, to lock them in on their interest rate. I think the last time we heard, George, it was 2 point something.
The last was 2 1/8 for a 40-year term.
Okay.
So we're trying to lock them in. If, as soon as we get that approval from USDA, they will take out the construction loan and they will make us pay off Park Bank. There can be no other lenders on here.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any more questions from any counselors? Counselor Barnzelli or Counselor Johnson?
I'll move the resolution providing the issuance, sale, and delivery of the general obligation temporary grant anticipation note series 2022A to Park State Bank.
Is there support? Support by Counselor Friedland. Now, is there any further discussion? I hear none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, motion carries. Okay, now do we have anything else before we move into committee reports?
Thanks, George.
Okay. Britt, do you want to start moving on the committee reports?
Sure. At the committee of whole, we had a committee of the whole meeting held on February 15th, 2022. I'll get to these minutes here quick. At that meeting, we had a presentation from Jim Mikowski and Beth Pierce from the Iron Range Tourism Board regarding the tourism industry for 2021. The 2019 revenues were down 35%, but 2021 came back strong and exceeded 2019. People are traveling, which is a very good thing. The ATV market has been very good, so the area is trying to capitalize on that. They received grants for the Thursday Art Walk, broadband improvements, and improvements to the Mesabi Trail. The tourism board is implementing more videos to use in promotion and a new logo. Mr. John Swenson, our lieutenant, is working on a grant request with Essentia Health Foundation regarding homelessness in the city. So he asked permission to approve submitting a grant to the Essentia Health Foundation regarding homeless needs and to use the city tax ID number as a conduit for that grant application.
I will move to authorize to apply for and accept the grant.
Okay, is there support? Support by Counselor Friedland, made by Counselor Johnson. Any further discussion on this? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Mr. Matt Reed, our city engineer record, was present to discuss the approval for the professional services agreement for plans, specifications, and bidding services for our city lift station SCADA system upgrade project. We have submitted an application to CDBG, which will be awarded to help with the upgrades. We will be submitting an application to IRRB also for that same project. We need to get the plans and specifications ready and prepared and the bidding done prior to the IRRB grant application. It was moved and supported to approve the professional services agreement with SCH for the city lift station SCADA system upgrade for creation of plans, specs, and with bidding documents.
Okay, is there a motion for that approval?
I'll move.
Okay, moved, is there support?
Support.
Support, moved by Counselor Paulson, correct? And supported by Counselor Beyondich. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, go ahead, Brett.
We discussed the sublease agreement between the city of Virginia and the Essentia for the clinic facility that's owned by the city. It was moved and supported to direct city staff to negotiate with Essentia to discuss covering the gap when the lease expires.
So moved.
Support.
It's been moved by Counselor Johnson, supported by Counselor Friedland. Any further discussion on that? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 It was moved and supported to approve a letter in support of the Northland Foundation proposal to deed for the Main Street Economic Revitalization Grant Program.
So moved.
Moved by Counselor Johnson, supported by Counselor Barnzelli. Any further discussion on that one? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries.
It was moved and supported to approve the resolution to apply for and accept funds from the Department of Iron Range Resources for the Virginia Hospitality LLC project.
Is there a motion on that?
So moved.
Moved by Counselor Beyondich. Is there support? Support by Counselor Johnson. Any further discussion? Hearing none? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. And we'll move on to personnel next. Motion carries, by the way, Pam.
The next item on the agenda was the discussion regarding the advanced clerical technical position. It was moved and supported to set the rate of pay for the Public Works advanced clerical technical position at $28.90 per hour.
So moved.
Moved by Counselor Freely, support. Support by Counselor Johnson. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Motion carries.
It was moved and supported to approve the resolution to hire 2 library aides.
So moved.
Moved by Counselor Paulson, support by Counselor Beyondich. Any discussion on that? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries.
It was moved and supported to approve the resolution to hire 5 recreation assistants.
So moved.
Support.
Okay, moved by Counselor Beyondich and supported by Counselor Johnson. Any discussion on those hires? Counselor Beyondich, or Counselor Paulson?
Thank you.
Sorry about that.
I will be abstaining from this as it is one of my children who is being hired. Thank you.
Yeah, before we go on further, Brian, I got a question. We've been doing some extensions and some other stuff, unless you're, as a counselor, directly getting money out of something else, you don't have to abstain, correct?
Well, there's a couple of different types. There's 2 specific different types of conflict, and the best practice is to avoid both those actual conflicts where you would actually be involved in the contract, and then also to avoid the appearance of conflict. But in this case, anytime, while it may not be a direct financial benefit to a council member individually, if a subject matter of a vote is such that it appears very strongly that there may be a conflict, or if for yourself personally, you want to avoid that, or the subject matter, you have a definite bias in your mind based on some particular factor circumstance, you don't necessarily have to have a financial interest in order for a conflict to exist. And so in this case, because of the close relationship, it's probably a best practice to abstain from it.
Okay, I just want to clarify that. No, nothing against you, Counselor Paulson, because I
Plus, I'm on
voted,
the Personnel Committee.
yeah, because I've voted on things that were financial, but they weren't actually in my household.
Thank you
so-
for that clarification. I just
I
thought
just
I'd
wanted to
rather be
make
safe
sure.
than sorry.
Yeah, no, I understand now better.
Thank you.
Okay. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. One extension, 1, 2, 3, 4, yeah, we have 5 votes, so we're okay. Okay, we're okay, because we do have 5 votes because it's spending money. All right, motion carries. 5-1 with 1 abstention.
It was moved and supported to approve the resolution authorizing property acquisition by eminent domain for several properties within the proposed public safety building area.
So moved.
It's been moved by Counselor Johnson, supported by Counselor Barnzelli. Any discussion on this issue? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 It was moved and supported to direct staff to devise a letter of support on behalf of the city of Floodwood to apply for their USDA loan application.
So moved.
Moved by Counselor Freelib, is there support?
Support.
Support by Counselor Paulson. Any discussion on that? We're just doing a service for them to help them get their USDA loan. So, hearing no other discussion, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
It was moved and supported to approve the city attorney to send a letter to Northern Divide Bar and Eatery enforcing item number 22 of their existing lease regarding notice of default and termination regarding the arrears within the 14-day requirement as per the contract.
Okay, that's already been done, but you want a motion on that anyway? Okay.
So moved.
So moved by Counselor Johnson. Support by Counselor Barnzelli. Any further discussion on this? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Hearing no opposition, motion carries.
The final motion was to set a special meeting today at February 22nd, 2022 at 4 PM to discuss the golf course restaurant lease, and that meeting did occur.
Okay, we didn't have any action required by the council. We just took care of that. Okay, we'll move on here. I can find my agenda again. Okay, committee reports are done. We had, next we had a special meeting. Took care of that. Okay, special committee hold meeting held on February 16th, 2022. Brett, do you want to take care of that one?
Sure. At the Special Personnel Committee of the Whole that was held on February 16th, 2022 at the Iron Trail Motors Event Center, we had a few motions that came out. The first one was to direct staff to create a sales and marketing job description and recommend the proper union placement. In your
Okay,
packet is a job description, and I hope everybody had a moment to read it. Whatever union we put it in, we still need to negotiate a wage.
that's a separate issue.
That's a separate issue.
Okay, has everybody had a chance to look at the job description? Anybody have anything they want to add? Counselor Paulson?
I'll move to approve.
Okay, is there support? Support by Counselor Beyondich. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 The second motion was to approve reassigning the administrative assistant at the Iron Trail Motors Event Center from part-time status to full-time status.
There a motion to that effect?
I will move, and we need to post it as well.
But once we do the classification, it has to be posted internally, 7 days minimum, and if the existing employee does not apply, then, and nobody else applies in that 7 day, then we have to go outside.
I'll make the motion with the appropriate steps.
Okay, is there support?
Or
Support by Counselor Paulson, made by Counselor Johnson. Any further discussion on that? Just one thing, but we're going to do that all in one swell swoop, so we'll have both things in action at the same time?
Yes.
Internal and external? Okay.
I don't think it'll make it out of internal.
Okay, well, that's all right, just to make sure we have it correct. Okay, no further discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Next item is item C.
Moved and supported to direct staff to develop a janitorial job description for the Iron Trail Motors Event Center. So in your packet, we have a custodial services at the Iron Trail Motors Event Center job description.
I'll move the job description.
There's support, Counselor Johnson moves.
Support.
Support by Counselor Beyondich. Any further discussion on that description? And that will be a similar process with a separate motion, correct, Brett?
Correct, we would have to meet with the union to negotiate wage.
Okay. Counselor Freeland.
So there are positions already in play, whether it's utility worker or the recreation assistants that do have, I'm assuming, some overlapping responsibilities that you also see in this current job description, but the necessity for these two new positions is because of the extensive square footage of this new building compared to the old that requires us to have some additional personnel exclusively working on janitorial and custodial services. Correct?
Correct, even if it's just the deep cleaning, even if these staff are just doing the constant deep cleaning, because you could start one corner of the building deep cleaning and get to the end and have to go right back to the beginning again, because it's that big of a building.
In other words, like utility workers have other things to do, but they'll get to janitorial services if they have the time.
They're great at the day-to-day cleaning, the garbages, the pick up the large things that are needed, but we are not doing so well at getting in the corners and getting the deep cleaning done.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, any further discussion, Counselor Johnson?
Thank you. And this today would probably be a great example. I'm guessing that a
we're all out.
utility worker or two or three or four were constantly moving snow all day today. And this position would allow for folks to be inside keeping the floors clean and wet, or keeping them dry.
Our staff did not finish with snow removal until 2 o'clock this afternoon.
But it
So
snowed
from,
after 2.
from 5 a.m. to 2 o'clock, we did not have any of our utility workers inside the building doing any of the day-to-day maintenance or housekeeping
there
that
was
they normally do.
Quite the tournament this weekend as well, so they were busy all weekend. So these two positions are definitely the support we need to keep the building in pristine condition that we want it to be in.
Okay, is there any further discussion? Thank you, Counselor Johnson. Okay, hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Motion carries.
It was moved and supported to approve the creation of the position of event coordinator for the Iron Trail Motors Event Center.
So moved.
Support.
Okay, moved by Counselor Paulson, supported by Counselor Johnson. Is there any discussion on this motion? Counselor Friedland.
Just, I want to quickly interject my appreciation to the Lundin Group for all of the things that they did do for us while they were with us, and losing them to the contract that they have with the city then necessitates us to find positions for the event coordinator, to give a full-time position to an administrative assistant, and I'm missing one. Oh, sales and marketing. So those were covered for us by the Lundin Group, and I just want to express my appreciation for the work that they did do for us.
Okay, I just have one question. Once we pass this tonight, you're going to get out with RFPs immediately for this position? Or what are you going to do with this position? Is it going to be in-house, or
We have to meet and negotiate wage with the personnel
can't
committee
go out
and,
to, you can't go out and look?
no, not until I have a
Okay.
wage. I need to know what I'm paying somebody.
So does this eliminate another group from coming in then, like the Lundin Group?
This is intended to be an employee.
I'm having a hard time with that, to be an employee, at this point. 'Cause you're gonna have to have a special employee that has the ability to travel all over the United States to get events for us in the state of Minnesota. And they may not have the resources, so whoever we hire has gotta have the resources.
That would be the sales and marketing, not the event coordinator. The event coordinator would be doing building-specific
Okay,
events.
all right, so two separate positions.
Two separate positions, yep,
Okay,
yep.
and I'm mixed up with that one, okay. Any further discussion, Counselor Johnson?
I think I'd like to echo what Councillor Freelieb said, as well as the Lundins are, as we move forward, sending us stuff that they did to help us out. So we're not going into this position completely dry. They're sending regular, for lack of a better term, memos to the city staff saying, this is what we did, this is how we did it, this is how you're moving forward. So we still have there's still currently contract with them, they're still working, but they're also really providing a base for us to have a solid position moving forward. So again, appreciate them continuing to be partners with us and providing us with the information we need to be able to move forward.
Okay, is there any further discussion on this? Okay, hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay,
And the final motion is to direct staff to update the event coordinator job description to allow for more flexibility and descriptive language regarding interaction with staff. And that would be under the item 6, the management responsibilities.
okay. Any, need a motion, don't you, Britt?
I don't know that I need a motion since we approved the job description, unless there's anything else you wanted to change in the job description.
Okay, all right,
It was added, it was part of the,
okay, so we're good there.
and we did change the work schedule to just say this is a full-time position. We didn't put anything about hours, just that you will work long hours, it will include weekends and holidays. I think anybody in this position understands that.
Okay,
Those are when events happen.
all right. So, can we jump back to one thing here, and I misunderstood when I voted for this. That sales and marketing job, does that eliminate then any outside sources, any outside contractors? If they're gonna make a staff position out of, a union placement position out of that?
That, yes, that is a union position. That would be a union position. I just don't know which union yet. Yes.
All right, we'll see what comes out of the woodwork then, I guess, when we go out for job description, see what happens. If I'm not happy, I can vote no, I guess. Okay. All right. You don't need any motion on this last item. Anything else that we need to bring up? Pam, you handed something to me. What was that again? Right at the beginning.
Oh, that was the resolution.
We already approved it. Okay. All right. Thanks for bearing with me so far. Councilor Paulson.
Thank you. At that meeting, did we also say to draft up a job description or preliminary on sales and marketing? Did we move to do that?
Yeah, I was the very first one.
Oh, late night? Okay. So,
was
okay,
trying
so
to
that
be-
was the first one that we did.
I was trying
Okay.
to beat the record, but I'm not going to make it close.
So, I guess with that being said, I usually review the YouTube meetings, and this one isn't on YouTube. Could
Well,
we
that's where
make
we had
sure that
trouble.
this meeting, it gets up there? This was a really good meeting that for the public to understand what the overall vision and planning and directives were from that meeting. But yeah, I normally review them, so I apologize. Other than that, I do have one thing, and I think I'll probably bring this under council reports, Mayor.
Okay. Thank you. We're moving on to item number 10 then, commission liaison reports. Are there any commission liaison reports? I usually have one, but the utilities, this meeting fell funny because the utility meeting isn't until next week, Monday, because the way the Mondays fell, it's only the third Monday, they meet the fourth Monday. So I won't have one then, for a couple of weeks. Anybody else have a commission liaison report? Seeing none, department head reports. Start over there, Britt. Brian? No reports, ma'am? None with you, Sherry, either? Okay. And we'll move on to council reports. Okay. I see that we have a couple of lights on. Well, we'll go ladies first. Councilor Paulson.
Thank you. So I received a letter from a constituent, and I'd like to read it, and I don't know if it was forwarded to our city clerk, so maybe I'll just forward it to you and you can put it into the record. But it's good morning. I've been working as an advocate for my neighbor, Lisa Rena, for 16 days. City water has been flooding her basement. She has had the water tested by 2 separate independent testing labs indicating both fluoride and chlorine in the water. Also measures exactly 18 grains of hardness, identical to city water. Repeat nonstop attempts by myself and Michelle have fallen on deaf ears and excuses by the Virginia Public Utilities for over 2 weeks. There's extensive damage now because of the lack of action to resolve this problem. I would like to meet with you as soon as possible next week at Michelle's home, 406 10th Avenue South. Sincerely, Greg Lindsay. I have also received the water reports of both chlorine and fluoride in the water that is leaking in Miss Lena's basement. And what I would like to do, Vice Mayor, is I would like to invite the Public Commission Board, Public Utility Commission Board, to our next Tuesday Committee of the Whole meeting, as this is concerning. I know, I think you've been made aware of this. I believe our mayor has been made aware of this. She's at day 18 taking a squeegee to her basement every 3 hours because of this water. They've been getting no satisfaction from Greg French nor of the actual commissioners at the public utilities. So if it gets to the point where we're getting emails as a city council, I think that I would appreciate a meeting with the board to discuss customer service, how quickly they respond to people. We're getting ourselves in a situation again that it looks bad for the city because people equate public utilities with the city of Virginia and our city staff. So I'd like to make a motion to invite the commissioners, the Virginia Public Utility Commissioners, to our next committee of the whole meeting to discuss specifically this property at 406 10th Avenue South and and have a discussion going forward.
Okay, is there support for that?
Support.
Okay, support by Counselor Beyondich. Now, we need to hear both sides of the story, because I have talked to public utilities, because I got a call, and I did talk to Mr. French. They've had people out there multiple times with their equipment searching for that leak, and they have a piece of equipment called a whisper piece of equipment that picks up stuff as small as a ballpoint pen tip when there's leaks. They haven't been able to find where that leak is yet. And in the wintertime, you can't dig up the whole city to figure out, you gotta use your equipment. So I have no objection. I'll be there at Monday's commission meeting, so it'll come up again, because that's in my brain also, to make sure that that gets brought forward. But we'll see that somebody gets there, and I'll make sure that happens at the
Thank you very much.
commission meeting. But we'll send them a message anyway. I have not been over to her house. I have talked to the individual, and she has no sump pump either, but the neighbor's sumps have been going off steady, so there's something going on someplace. So they got to figure it out. They haven't been able to figure it out yet. They have one theory, but it doesn't preclude what's going on with the hardness and the other chemicals that are in there, unless it has to do with the discharge that comes out of the utilities, water treatment stuff, and into the lake, because there's been an unusual thing that's happened this year. The creek is frozen right to the bottom. It's never done that before. So their feeling is water may be coming over the top across the ice that nobody sees and seeping through soils that haven't frozen yet this year. But we'll get more information from the utilities once they investigate more. They said they were going to come in and do some more after the holiday on Monday, and I talked to Greg French on Friday. So that's where it sits on my Counselor Johnson.
Counselor Paulson, would you clarify what the purpose, what we're going to be asking of them when they come here, so that they have an idea of?
Well, specifically, I think addressing the property that I stated, and then I would say customer service, what their process is when a constituent comes in with a problem, and they start at one place and it moves up the chain, ends here, they can't find a resolution, the commissioners aren't able to get to a resolution, and now we're on day 18 of someone having to squeegee their floor every 3 hours and reaching out to city councilors. And I feel that I need to understand what their internal processes are in order to alleviate our body from getting this type of communication. They should be able to solve this internally.
I truly appreciate that, because there's other times, not specific, but where sometimes our constituents feel unheard or unresponded to, and knowing what that process is, I think it'd be extremely helpful. And
I hope that clarifies it.
If Greg is listening, having a flow chart or something would be great, because then I will not remember, but we'll be able to refer back to that. Thank you, Counselor.
Okay, any further discussion on this issue? I believe, Pam, you sent out those letters to everybody, or that letter from Greg, trying to think of his last name, Lindsay. Did you send that to everybody? Because I got a copy of that too, that same letter. Oh, you might have done that. Oh, okay, maybe we can send a copy of that letter. I'll forward it to you. Yeah, send it to Pam. Okay. No, it came, I think it might have come directly from Greg Lindsay. Okay, we got a motion on the floor then, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, and we have a support? Support, okay, any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any other council reports? Councilor Johnson.
I need to give a shout out to the library and the amazing carpeting in both the South Children's Room and the upstairs. I know we had some concerns about who was doing it, but the efficiency in which they moved, they being the contractor, moved and removed and laid down was amazing, and it looks great. Our building looks refreshed, and appreciate all your hard work in doing that. And I also, I need to give a shout out, of course, to Public Works and the Parks and Rec and the amazing job they've been doing over the last 36, 48 hours and moving snow 6 or 7 times as it's blowing around. It's very inconvenient, but they are doing the best they can up and down the main streets, our snow emergency routes. That it is clearly amazing. I talked to a friend who lives south, and it's standard practice in some places to wait 2 or 3 days to get your alley plowed, and it's just part of the way life is in other places. So to all those folks out there who are going to get up again tomorrow morning at who knows what time to get our alleys somewhat clean so we can maybe get to work, thank you very much.
Just to tack on a little bit to what Councilor Johnson said, they had just, our Public Works crew had just started to clean alleys with loaders and stuff to take some of the snow away. Then we got this next storm, so they had to quit. I think they got only a couple alleys done to remove, because they're closing in, so there's only not even a lane hardly for one car in some of these alleys right now. I know from my perspective, the snow that I removed side of my garage, it's on the side of the alley. 3/4 of the way up along the side of the snow, because I don't have any place else to put it now. So they'll come through eventually with the loaders and the trucks, and they'll take it away. But right now, they got other priorities to get rid of the snow.
Yeah, and that's a great segue. Very soon, the next 2 weeks, you may see no parking signs on your side of your street, because they will be starting to come through with the blower on areas of town where the streets are starting to get really narrow, because there are some that are getting really narrow, so that they're going to start coming through and doing some serious snow removal as soon as we can catch up from this storm
You
today.
may see some of that snow blown into your yard, so don't be surprised. They'll try to, but it's tough when it's narrow because they can't put those trucks
And this wind
side by
is,
side.
this wind is wicked right now. It's,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay, with that, if there's no other council reports or anything from staff, we'll adjourn till Tuesday, March 8th at 5:30 PM in the council chambers for our next meeting. So just a motion to adjourn. Okay, is there support? Support by Councilor Freely, made by Councilor Beyondich. Meeting's adjourned. I get to. Okay, thank you. Thanks, Pam, for this. This really helped. Okay, that's good. Yeah, that's better than, well, it's better than trying to